like to call this meeting back to order. Seemed to be a little bit of confusion on an item here I'd like to address. One is generally we're not going to have more public comment on the informational items. So if anybody, and so what I'm going to do to address that right now is if anybody had any I'm going to reopen the public comment period. On the action items, we'll have more public comment, but on the informational items. So if anybody had any further public comment on we're not going to have public comment on the informational items, okay? There's several informational items here. We generally don't. I think there was some confusion of that. So to alleviate that confusion, I should have said that at the beginning of the public comment period, perhaps. I'd like to reopen public comment if there was anyone that had anything on any of the items that were informational.
Which are what? Which ones?
And all of 24, 17, 16, well, one of 16 is going to be
17.
17, all the different items in 24, the informational items.
Do you have a clean copy of this?
No.
Jerry says he never got it
All right, go ahead, Mr. Laughlin.
Thank you, Chairman Rain. For the record, Pat Laughlin, President, Nevada Alliance for Wildlife. And I also was asked and privileged to sit on the Mule Deer Restoration Board for the state that was established last year by former Chairman Lent. I live in Elko, outside of Elko. I'd like to point out a few things about Tony's report on the Area 10 mule deer. I've been involved in it through our county board from the start. I've been to all the meetings, everything. The main reason that we were presented there at the cab for this doe hunt was because of Project 17, and this was stated in the meeting, was in this last year was determined that it wasn't working. So, as a matter of fact, the last year of the project the rubies didn't even get a fall flight for a count. You know, now I want to remind everybody, but this is our main mule deer. 25% of the mule deer in the state of Nevada are in the rubies, okay? Now, as far as the issues of the Project 17 not working, in conversation with Wildlife Services, who did do the work, and several experts, including my father, Mike Laughlin, who pioneered a lot of the techniques that they're using now for mule deer protection, mainly from coyotes. In this project, the core of that mountain was never taken care of. As far as what I mean is, the helicopter was never used to take out those mountain coyotes. Now, these mountain coyotes, they're not like these ones running around the bottoms of these mountains. They're eating rabbits and mice and stuff like this. They live on that mountain year-round. They have pairs. They're territorial. They're almost like wolves, and you'll see them stay paired up year-round. And they live on that mountain. And they raise them dens of pups right there. And when those pups are about ready to come out of those dens and eat meat, by the end of May, 1st of June, guess what's hitting the ground? Fawns. Now, this is their primary source of food, and it's been proven time and time again. You talk to Wildlife Service, I've seen it myself all through my life as a kid, denning with my father and stuff, and the first thing you notice if you ever find a coyote den, especially in the mountains or anywhere, you'll find out exactly what those coyote pups are living on, because that den and all around that den, it looks like a bunch of little kids have been there. Whatever they're eating will be scattered. The bones of those will be scattered everywhere. Okay? And that's what you find in these mountains. These are deer-eating mountain coyotes. Now, in this project, it was never used. Okay? It was never used. Now, they did a lot of work and killed a lot of coyotes off those deer winter ranges. Now, when you can talk to Wildlife Services, the main percentage, high percentage, okay, real quick, of the coyotes that were killed or deer that have been killed on those winter ranges are yearlings. That explains why your doe rate can stay low like it has in the rubies, okay?
Okay.
And your numbers are climbing.
Thank
because
you.
they're eating the yearlings on them winter ranges.
Next, sir, in the hat here. Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
My name is Heston Johns. I'm from Clover Valley, south of Wells, Nevada. And we ranch in Clover Valley, so we were in the heart of this Area 10 101 Predator Project 17 that was referred to by Laughlin. And it's
So this is just general public comment?
6 generations. We were running 50% of the cattle that we were on that land, both private and on the federal lands. It's not a habitat issue on the East Humboldts. There's no domestic sheep anymore. They're extinct.
Any of the informational items.
The water, the deer never have to go more than half a mile to a mile to live open water. And so as far as the feed sources, there's no competition for what the deer used to that mountain used to support. When I was a young kid, I remember, like Hank said, we used to make a trip to Spruce Mountain and then to the north end of the valley and watch the deer migrations. 500-600 bunches of deer at one time crossing the highways. And you don't see 500 or 600 deer on that whole mountain. And the gene pool is decreasing from the decrease in the amount of deer, and a large part that Predator Project 17, it was working. Like he was saying, they were getting a lot of the coyotes on the winter ranges. They weren't getting the territorial coyotes that stayed on the East Humboldts up high with the super cub. And the hunting pressure we've noticed more hunters, less deer. They're hunting them from mid-August until December, when they're trying to get fleshed up to go into the winter, trying to get fleshed up to breed, and then you're out there pressuring them when they're trying to breed and then go on to the winter ranges and survive. And so we believe that has a huge effect on the amount of tags that are issued on this deer herd and the doe hunts. You can't kill your factories. That if you want these deer to reproduce, you get 1 fawn for 1 doe. You might get 20 fawns out of a buck, but you're not going to get the fawns. If you kill the factories, you're not getting them. And so we would like to see, or we've talked to several people in White Pine and Elko counties, break some of these units separate, subunits, and try some different things. Reduce the deer tags, because the sportsmen, they might complain if you do it, but if there's no deer to hunt, then they're really going to complain. And reduce these herds and try some different management programs and reduce tags, set quotas. So that's all we've got to say. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for coming up. Appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see, Mr. Laughlin, then Mr. Dixon.
Thank you. My name is Mike Laughlin, and many of you know me here. I've been around this thing quite a while. I live in the Ruby Mountains, on the west slope of the Ruby Mountains. That's where I live, and that's where I work. I punch cows for a living. I was a wildlife biologist for 31 years in 9 western states, plus Canada, Mexico, and beyond. And I really can't quite grasp the fact that the deer in our area, where I live, have almost to the point disappeared. And I'm going to give you a visual, if I can, of what the area looks like. From Secret Pass, which splits the East Humboldt and the main mountain range, the Ruby Mountains, south, there's only one access point. It's called Soldier Creek. From that on till you get to Lamoille Canyon, there is no access. You don't go in here unless you got a key to the gate or somebody lets you in. So for all practical purposes, this should be similar to a national park. At one time in 1973, there was approximately 50,000 head of sheep that were run on the Ruby Mountains with Basco herders, pack outfits. The trails were clean, and there was a deer behind every bush. And I camped there with most of those Bascos. I probably know the Rubies as well as maybe one guy, Walt Gardner, who grew up on the other side of the mountain. I don't understand how this area could be at capacity as far as deer habitat is concerned when there is no animals there. There is no deer left. There is no sheep. There's 2 bunches of cows. Ken Jones has a small bunch of cows, and Bill McKnight, who I ride for, has about 183 cows, and that's it. There is no livestock left on that mountain. That mountain is dead for all practical purposes. So my dog in the fight has always been that Laughlins are hunters. My granddad was a market hunter for the railroad before Dakota became a state in the Dakota territories. My dad was a hunter. He taught me to hunt. My kids are hunters. Pat has hunted behind me ever since he was big enough to get on my horse. And now this year, for the first time, his twins were able to hunt, Pachi and Peo. And they had looked their whole life at this hunt. They watch every hunting show. They have their own rifles. They have their own backpacks. They have their own binoculars. So I drew the short straw, and Pat calls up and says, "Grandpa, we're coming. You're taking these boys hunting." Well, here we are. Here's old Grandpa. I'm 74 years old, and we had an unbelievable hunt. We didn't kill any deer. We didn't kill any deer, and I had access to this place, okay? So consequently, I really cannot believe this habitat issue. I think what's happened is the deer no longer migrate, and the deer go from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. This migration factor is over as far as big migrations from north to south like it used to be. And the deer get cut off and the predators just stay with them. Thank you. Thank you for your
Appreciate you for coming out today. Do we have any other comment on Mr. Dixon, then Mr. Moldy?
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark County Wildlife Advisory Board. One of the things I picked up on Tony's collared deer migration stuff that he was looking at, something that this board has been brought forth several times, and we've looked at is the migration corridors tied to transmission lines and the energy development here in Nevada, whether it be wind, solar, geothermal, or extra coal-fired plants. And one of the things I was looking at, and I'm not sure which group would work this, Commissioner Raines, because I don't really see the details and recommendations in your report, is that we require from the Mule Deer Restoration Committee is that we start requiring all these companies that are coming in and asking to build these energy projects here in the state of Nevada, that they do in their EIS a pre, a during, and a post impact of the deer herds by collaring them and seeing what happens in those areas, in key areas where they're putting things. And I would strongly recommend that in your Mule Deer Restoration Committee report that we put some more thought and detail into that. I know it's been discussed, but I really don't see it highlighted like I do other things in your report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moldy. And then we have anybody else on? Okay, and then Mr. Gardner.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, Don Moldy, Reno, representing myself. I didn't know we were going to get back into predator issues again today. I'm relatively fatigued with that. But I guess repetition is perhaps has some virtue. I would simply remind you that in the last 10 years in this state, we've killed nearly 90,000 coyotes. Now I find out today that they're the wrong 90,000 coyotes. We've also killed about 2,000 mountain lions in the last decade. And this department itself has spent about $3 million in predator management projects. Mr. Chairman, where are the deer? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We had Mr. Gardner and then Assemblyman.
Walt Gardner for the record. I live in Ruby Valley. I've lived there all my life. I've watched the deer herd steadily decline since I was a little kid and first got to hunt. The predators are without a doubt in my mind the biggest issue, not the feed. On the East Humboldts this year, I saw multiple fawns, more twins than I've ever seen in years. Yet on the rubies, I didn't see hardly any fawns, even single fawns. George Corner hunts the Smith Creek, and he tells me on that side it's still good hunting. Why? The only difference between my side of the rubies and his side of the rubies, sheep. Sheep, they have predator control, follows the herd, kills the coyotes, they still got deer there. We don't have them on my side of the hill. The other thing, my brother wrote a letter I don't know if you guys want me to read it or just turn it in. It's up to Chairman Rain.
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
Okay. My name is Charlie Gardner. I'm a rancher and hunter and part-time guide. I began hunting at age 12 and have hunted the Ruby Mountains and East Humboldts for 28 years now. During that time, I have been a witness as predators have steadily increased while mule deer numbers have continued to decline. I believe NDOW made a big mistake when it discontinued predator control program on the East Humboldt Mountains. This year, I hunted most of the east side of the Rubies and part of the west side. I saw very few fawns, does, and very few mature bucks during this season. While on the other hand, the East Humboldts had a far greater number of does, fawns, and bucks. There is no question in my mind the predator control program that was initiated on the East Humboldts was working. If we want more deer, we need to expand and continue predator control programs throughout Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Hey, Suzanne will get it out to the rest of us. Appreciate it.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I talked to you earlier. I actually missed the public comment period. This has nothing to do with predator control.
That's all. It's all right.
Real quick.
Let's go over the informational items.
It's informational. It says the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is preparing a comprehensive conservation plan and environmental assessment for the Ruby Lake National Wildlife Refuge. You only have to the 28th of December. I don't know if this commission was aware of it, but unless you guys put in written comments, you're not going to have any say in policies on that huge marsh for eastern Nevada. It'll include boating regulations, and the reason I got interested is from 1938, when the refuge was established, until about 10 years ago, they had a sustained yield harvest for fur bearers there. That was simply discontinued by pretty much bureaucratic edict. I've been in communication with them now for about 3 years. And one of the things that they wanted was to have some input from the Department of Wildlife and the Wildlife Commission. I thought, because this has supposedly been sent out to all of the boards and bodies that would be involved, that you would already have received this. I understand, I just talked to Scott during the break, and apparently you have no knowledge of it. So the problem we've got is we only got to the 28th of December. I don't know if it can be an action item. You guys should get involved. All they're requesting is that you put in your comments so that it can be part of the discussion. You don't have to tell them you want certain things or not, but just simply to have it added into the plan. So I don't know what happened, how that ball was dropped, but I would like to see the commission get involved in that. That has historically been the highest fur bearer harvest area in the state of Nevada, and for about at least a decade now it has been completely closed, like I said, without any comments from the department. I've been in contact with Russell back when he was working in Region 2. We had some comment with them, and again, they pretty much said, unless we get some feedback from some agencies, the policy will stand. All I'm asking is that we have some comment from this body to them, asking them to reopen this, at least give us a chance to discuss it. Thanks.
Thank you. A question for staff. Do you guys get notice of that, I'm sure, at some point? And
yes, I believe our people are participating in that process right now. The fur bearer issue I'll have to follow up on and see if we provide any comment specifically on that, on the muskrat trapping and whatnot. So.
Okay, I just like, request if there's something like that appears the commission might want to make some comment on in the future.
Once again, it's the timeliness of those type of things. Yeah. I mean, this is what we do day in and day out. Our Habitat Division provides comments on these type of project or review processes. So.
Yeah, but I throw it out to the commission if they want to make comment.
I haven't seen in the leadership team minutes, so I'll follow up on that and see.
Excellent, thank you. Any further thing on the public comment on this item? Okay, yes.
Are you discussing item 16 at this time, or will that be later?
Item 16 will be coming up, and that's an action item here. And 22 is an action item, both of them. So we'll be covering that time. I was just going over the informational items that weren't there. All right, seeing no further public comment on that, we'll move on